Harry Waterman, a former UK police constable. Welcome to part 12 of my evidential research document in relation to CERN The Hadron Collider. Please verify and corroborate all of the information I'm showing you. Particularly important is the Companies House registration system. It's the government's own registration system, and there is an evidential trail throughout that registration system that proves our governments have been involved in international government fraud, which is exploiting and victimising billions of people. But it also appears to be being used for a very sinister plan involving the CERN Hadron Collider against humanity, if not even Earth and more. In the last parts of the video, we were looking at the connection through to the United Committee for UNICEF. We then looked through connections to other UNICEF organisations, fraudulent ones linked to the same two companies, Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, the company that I was removed from for refusing to file forged bank documents, and that removal being initiated by the Flemings. We then looked at connections to the Association of Chief Executives of Voluntary Organisations company, the exact same company that featured on the research surrounding the helicopter crash where the Spanish CEO for Siemens died, which is all part of this, or supposedly died. Links to Comic Relief, then to Royal Yacht Companies, fraud all the way throughout, ties to JP Morgan on the left, and then on the right there, United Nations organisations, okay, the United Nations Association of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. JP Morgan on the left is obviously associated with the Flemings, and that United Nations company that we looked at is a fraudulent criminal entity company created with the same two companies that started Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited. So everything appears to have been an inversion. Okay, whenever you see something that our governments are claiming is a good cause, it appears as though they've inverted it. And the ultimate goal appears, from all of this overwhelming evidence, to be that CERN is going to be used as the ultimate inversion against creation to create a point of singularity or black hole. That is what all of the evidence now suggests. And we've got to a point now where I wanted to research the post office scandal, or post office and horizon scandal. All right, bearing in mind we're talking about black holes which have an event horizon, and we looked at some connections through to event horizon into Stephen Hawking's horizon companies, etc. So the post office scandal on the left, there's a search just bringing up some of the articles, and here's what it says about it. The British post office scandal, also called the Horizon IT scandal. Okay, remember Horizon, black holes, also event horizon. Involved the post office pursuing thousands of innocent sub-postmasters for apparent financial shortfalls caused by faults in Horizon, an accounting software system developed by Fujitsu between 1999 and 2015. Now, 1999, it's obviously 2 years before the World Trade Center disaster. It's also the same year that they re-established the Church of Satan after its original founder died in 1997. Same time, in 1997, within 2 months prior, around that time, Princess Diana died. And you also, that same year, within 2 weeks of Princess Diana, you had the movie Event Horizon came out, which was about a black hole, or had connotations of a black hole. Now, I've looked into Fujitsu and Post Office. They feature at various points throughout the fraud, and they have criminal, fraudulent entity shell companies as part of them, okay? Reading on, it says, well, importantly, actually, 1999 and 2015. Well, 2015 ties in with the climate change agenda, okay? That's when the Paris Agreement was signed. The evidence that I'm getting suggests that the climate change side of things is connected to the Iranian Green Movement, okay, which was in 2009. And the Iranian Green Movement, okay, Green Movement, and obviously Greenpeace and the Green Party, okay, to do with the environment. Moving on anyway, between those dates, it says that more than 900 sub-postmasters were convicted of theft, fraud and false accounting based on faulty Horizon data, with about 700 of these prosecutions carried out by the Post Office. Other sub-postmasters were prosecuted but not convicted, forced to cover shortfalls caused by Horizon with their own money or had their contracts terminated. The court cases, criminal convictions, imprisonments, loss of livelihoods and homes, debts and bankruptcies led to stress, illness, family breakdowns and at least 4 suicides. In 2024, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak described the scandal as one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in British history. Rishi Sunak is massively implicated in this international fraud. He's got companies that were incorporated with dates of birth that contradict what it says on Wikipedia about him, okay? And then it all goes back in through the research of him back into the same international fraudulent companies that we are looking at in all of this. So I found this company a little while ago, Horizon Scandal Fund, okay? And this company was started in 2021. And you can see here that it had Horizon Scandal Fund Limited name from November the 12th until the 30th of November 2001. So just over 2 weeks. And then it changed its name by just removing the limited. This gives them the ability to launder money through those accounts, avoid tax, or avoid accountability and liability for their crimes. Within that company on the left, David Chaplin, links to on the right, Danjor Books Limited. You can see he was appointed in April 2002, not long after the World Trade Center disaster. Danjor Books on the left was incorporated, if it lets me load it. It's quite a big document, actually. So you can see on the left, it was incorporated in 1894, sorry. So it's a very old company, 1894, and it dissolved in October 2019, 2 months before the outbreak in Wuhan. Okay, the supposed outbreak in Wuhan, which is all related to this international government fraud that nobody else in the truther movement appears to be focusing on, when it is absolutely the key. And many of those groups and individuals, unfortunately, are linked to the international government fraud. Some of them are targeting me for trying to expose this and refusing to expose it themselves. That's because they're part of it, everybody. Now, look at the previous names for Danjor Books Limited. The first name in 1894, Jordan Group Services Limited. It then changed its name in 1993. Okay, not long after the initiation of the digital record for Companies House. Okay, remember we've been speaking about this recently. The important dates of 1989, creation of the World Wide Web, linking to CERN, 1991, Terminator 2, Judgment Day movie, which has very other relevant connotations to it, and not obviously the Gulf War was around that time, but also 1992 was when they initiated the digitization of the electronic register for Companies House, and it changed its name there. You can see 2016, okay, twice in 2016 in fact, and they changed the name to Jordan's 2016. Well, why is 2016 important? Well, according to the research that we're going to look at in a bit more detail in a minute, there was a satanic ritual that took place outside of CERN by the Shiva statue, okay, which represents creation and destruction. Okay, and 2016 was also the year that the TikTok platform was created, okay, social media platform. That all becomes relevant. TikTok counting down. And of course, we already know they had the Doomsday Clock, which goes back to 1947-48, the Israel-Arab War time as well. So does the Association of Chief Police Officers, and other relevant things happened from that date, including the United Nations, linking into it, etc. So, okay, so we've got this connection to Jordan's already. And those that follow the evidence will know how Jordan's relates to the company that I was removed from, which we're going to look at in a minute. And that company, Danjor Books, is a fraudulent criminal entity company, because here is the incorporation document, which actually says Joint Stock Companies Information Bureau Limited. So they forged the register of criminal entity company. On the right, within Danjor Books, Ian Harbottle, you can see there, links to from the United Kingdom, links to Vistra Limited. Okay, now those you'll hopefully realize how important this company is. It's the most important company throughout the fraud, and it was created in 1965, the year before the founding of the Church of Satan. And on its previous names on the register, you can see from 1965, according to the register, Jordans and Sons Limited. That's the most important name, okay, because this is all the same company. This is just where they've changed names. The most important company throughout the fraud. It then changed its name to Jordans Limited in 1996, 5 years before the World Trade Center disaster, and then again in 2019, again the year of the outbreak. And Jordans Limited is what is on the incorporation document along with Swifting Corporation Limited, for Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, the company that I was removed from, and that removal was initiated by somebody from the Fleming family. Now, the company is fraudulent. I know I've said this many times. So they're the only names that are on the register, but on the attached incorporation document that you can find in the filing history, it has Hammerplag Limited. There you go. You can see it. So it's a criminal fraudulent entity company. And further down, you'll see that the date is November 1965 on that document. And you can see the date on here is the 30th of November 1965. Now, there's a slight difference because obviously that's the creation of the document, the signing of it. And then the 30th of November is when it's registered. But we know they've forged the register and that document relates to it because they're not going to have had another company name between those two dates. Okay, so they've forged the register and put Jordans and Sons Limited instead of Hammerplag Limited. This is our government, remember. The government control the register. This means it's a criminal fraudulent entity company. It should never have been allowed to trade, and then it can exploit and victimise humanity utilising this system and laundering money, all funneling it through into their sinister plans and activities. Complete crime against their own acts, statutes and legislation. Within the Danjor Books company, the same director that we're looking at links to this company, the Lindens Property Management Company. Look at the address. You'll see that this is featured throughout this previous research of the CERN Hadron Collider. Queensway House, 11 Queensway, United Kingdom, New Milton, Hampshire. This is the location where Deborah Fleming was the NHS Chief Executive for 10,000 staff and £700 million budget, in her own words. And she was the one that initiated my removal from Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited. You'll know that if you've seen my previous evidence that links to the Julian Assange document. Okay, Julian Assange, and here's just one example of it. On the document there, you can see the same address, Queensway House, 11 Queensway, New Milton, Hampshire. It does feature several times throughout it. Going back to the same director that we were looking in Danjor Books, you can see on the right, CAPB Limited. Those that have followed my evidence will know that is a very important company in all of this because it had an original company name of ianfleming.co.limited, so Fleming Connection, created in 1932 and changed its name the day before Larry Silverstein purchased the lease for the World Trade Center building, okay? And of course it collapsed in September that year, and it was the only time in its 31-year history that it changed hands to a different owner. That is all linking in. It's all connected, everybody, all to this. And I appear to be the only truther focusing on this, the key issue in everything. And that's because they have literally, as I've said, they have positioned many people. And you can see that the director on the same director links to JP Morgan US Smaller Companies Investment Trust PLC. And those who follow my evidence will know that the Flemings connect to JP Morgan. On the right, within Danjor Books, Ralph Leake connects to Swifting Corporations Limited, just to show, that's the other company that started Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited. Okay, it normally goes hand in hand with Jordans Limited, and you can see it was started in 1985 at the bottom, and it dissolved after I exposed it on the 21st of November 2023. So that will not be an IT issue. The biggest miscarriage of justice in the United Kingdom's history, where people died wrongly accused, okay, they're blaming on an IT issue. It will not be. It will be because of this international government fraud, everybody. And the media's covering it up, the government are covering up, and they're all complicit to serious crimes against humanity and children and the innocents. And it's linked to a satanic cult potentially infiltrated by an Egyptian bloodline, okay? So, let's look at the Diamond Light Source project. Now, I hadn't heard of this until fairly recently when someone told me about it. And on the left, we can just see I've searched Hadron Collider in the United Kingdom, and it brings up Diamond, Britain's answer to the Large Hadron Collider. Now, that Large Hadron Collider refers to CERN, okay, the Hadron Collider in Switzerland. And here's Diamond Light Source. Okay, on Wikipedia, you can see it says it's the UK's national synchrotron light source science facility located at the Harwell Science and Innovation Campus campus in Oxfordshire. Now, Oxfordshire is important. We've already mentioned it several times. It's Ghislaine and Robert Maxwell who are key to this, okay? They're key individuals. Jeffrey Epstein, remember, had the visit in 2012, less than 3 months before they created the Higgs boson God particle with Stephen Hawking, where this evidence is all linking in with, okay? They're all linked into this child network, trafficking network, and the blood taken from children is all linked into this sinister plan appears to create a point of singularity or black hole, okay, to invert everything. Everyone needs to get behind me on this. Everything's at stake, humanity. You need to get this out to everybody, all right? I'm being suppressed. So the diamond light source, let's have a look at it a bit more. Its purpose is to produce intense beams of light whose special characteristics are useful in many areas of scientific research. In particular, it can be used to investigate the structure and properties of a wide range of materials, from proteins to provide information for designing new and better drugs, and engineering components such as a fan blade from an aero engine to conservation of archaeological artifacts. For example, Henry VIII's flagship, the Mary Rose. We're going to come to that in a minute. Now remember, you may have heard me say this, the JP Morgan is involved in the archaeology. Not only have they got this deception criminal system, so they can't be trusted. No one in government can be trusted because of this, because it's deceptive, criminal, fraudulent system which motivates all of the agenda and the lies from that point. Okay, we cannot have mistrust in our government, or those that are a government actually means mind control. I'd rather say those that are leaders or guiders for those that want to be led or guided. So we can see this, the archaeology mentioned here, and JP Morgan was involved in the archaeology of the Stonehenge, I always forget the name of that, and the Egyptian pyramids as well. You could go and research that, okay? They were involved in the archaeology. There are more than 50 light sources across the world on the bottom left there, with an energy of 3 GeV. Diamond is a medium energy synchrotron currently operating with 32 beam lines. So I think what they're planning on doing is utilising CERN and all of these other equivalent facilities to somehow create this point of singularity. And we've looked at the research on whether it's possible, and it does appear that it is. On the right, the Diamond Synchrotron is the largest UK-funded scientific facility to be built in the UK since the Nimrod Proton Synchrotron. Nimrod, okay, that name refers back, so I'm led to believe, to satanic connections. Reading on, it says, which was sited at the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory in 1964. 1964, the year after the supposed assassination of JFK, which will all be related to this, okay, and 2 years before the foundation of the Church of Satan, 1 year before Jordan's and Sons Limited was incorporated. Reading on, it says, nearby facilities include the ISIS neutron and Morn source. Those who follow my evidence will know that the Flemings are connected to CAPB Limited via the address to loads of ISIS companies that connect to Julian Assange. All right, go and look back at the other parts, look at the evidence. I'm going to circulate the documents. ISIS was also given the name given to the linking to the Islamic State, okay, 1999. Again, the year of the re-establishment of the Church of Satan, in preparation for the World Trade Center disaster, to blame it on them. And 2001 is when a new high priest was positioned within the Church of Satan. And the research surrounding them, surname of Gilmore, I think it's Paul or Philip, I can't remember, appears to be linking into the royal family again, all right, from the initial research. Reading on, so it all ties in, okay, ISIS again, when ISIS is an Egyptian goddess, okay, so more Egyptian connections, and we hopefully, if I have a chance, I'm going to show more evidence of all of that. And you can see here, reading on, it says, so it had the ISIS neutron and muon source. the Central Laser Facility and the laboratories at Harwell and Culham, including the Joint European Torus Jet project. It replaced the synchrotron radiation source. Okay, radiation tying in with the cell towers, and black holes emit radiation, everybody. This is all linking in now back into CERN, a second generation synchrotron at the Daresbury laboratory in Cheshire. Diamond produced its first user beam towards the end of January 2007 and was formally opened by Queen Elizabeth II, okay, in 2007. Whether it's related or not, 2007 is when Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited was founded, incorporated. It's also, of course, the year when Madeleine McCann supposedly went missing, which all links into this very, very quickly on the Company's House records. Construction. A design study during the 1990s was completed in 2001. This is talking about the diamond light source, okay? 2001, the year of the Church of Satan. 1990s, the year of the World Trade Center disaster. 1990s is obviously very important. We've been talking about the early 90s and why. And it mentions here that the Diamond Light Source Limited company was involved in this, and we're going to look into that in a minute. Further down, you can see the governance of it. The facility is operated by Diamond Light Source Limited, a joint venture company established in March 2002, not long after the World Trade Center disaster. The company received 86% of its funding from the UK government via the Science and Technology Facilities Council, STFC, and 14% from the Wellcome Trust, which we're going to come to in a minute. So ISIS and the neutron and muon source. Let's just have a quick look at this. So the ISIS neutron and muon source is a pulsed neutron and muon source established in 1984. Okay, that's not long after the Georgia Guidestones were implemented, which represented the US equivalent of the UK's Stonehenge, and it represented a upcoming man-made apocalyptic event, whether it be nuclear or scientific. And of course, CERN and these projects would fit into that category. And it talks further down here about it. It uses the techniques of muon spectroscopy and neutron scattering to probe the structure and dynamics of condensed matter on a microscopic scale ranging from the subatomic to macromolecular. The source was approved in 1997, the year I was born, the year that the very important letter appears to have been removed from the British Museum, and the British Museum Company features in various aspects of this. The letter written by Albert Pike, a high-level occultist and Freemason, to Mazzini, who was the head of the Illuminati linking into the Vatican in 1871, 100 years before the creation of the World Economic Forum in 1971, and that letter set out the falsified, staged 3 world wars. So it was approved in 1997 for the rail site on the Harwell campus, and recycled components from earlier UK science programmes include the accelerator hall, which had previously been occupied by the Nimrod accelerator. The first beam was produced in 1984, and the facility was formally opened by the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Obviously heavily implicated in this. The name Isis is not an acronym. It refers to the ancient Egyptian goddess, what I was saying earlier, and the local name for the River Thames, which is something someone recently told me, but I didn't realise that. The name was selected for the official opening for the facility in 1985, the year of the founding of Swifting Corporations Limited. Prior to this, it was known as the SNF, or Spallation Neutron Source. Reading further down, the second target station was given funding in 2003 by Lord Sainsbury, then Science Minister, and was completed in 2009. 2009 is important, okay, because 2009 is when the important company in all of this, the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, was started. It's when the Iranian Green Movement happened. It's also when the movie 2012 came out, which related to the year 2012 being an apocalyptic event, which ties in with the end of the Mayan calendar, and is the same year what we've talked about with the meeting between Jeffrey Epstein, Stephen Hawking, and other CERN scientists taking place 3 months before they discovered the God particle or Higgs boson particle at CERN The Hadron Collider. So here is just a bit of research on the Nimrod synchrotron. I'm not going to read this. You can pause it and have a look at it. I haven't even marked on it, but it links into CERN. It talks about various dates in there, and it mentions nuclear and subnuclear. So what I'm going to do now is flip over to another document, because this document's 117 pages, and when it gets too big it's hard to work with. So I'm going to go to the part 2 document now. So let's have a look on Companies House. Remember, this is the important evidence, everybody, okay? It appears as though they've left the truth within this and in conjunction with Wikipedia, okay? And part of their karmic nature and universal karmic law says they have to tell the public somewhere, okay, to remove their accountability or their guilt, I suppose. But of course, it's all deception, because the only way you can avoid the guilt is by literally telling everybody face to face, by the way, we're stealing money from you. By the way, we're planning on ending the universe. By the way, you know, we're planning on doing that. They've not done that. They've hidden it. So, you know, it's completely unfair with what they're doing. So Diamond Light Source Limited, the company that was involved, okay, in that project that we were just looking at, it was founded in 2002, this particular company, okay, and that's not long after the World Trade Center disaster in September 2001. On the incorporation document, you have Stanley Davis Group Limited. It links to the fraud throughout, okay, and that connects to very high-level members of the UK government, including David Cameron. On the left, within the company, John Comfort connects to Oxford Instruments Industrial Products Limited. I'm only showing you some of it. There's lots of other companies here, but I'm just picking out the ones that I can put in here. Otherwise, the documents will go on forever. So remember, a link to Oxford again, Gillian Robert Maxwell, okay, and that's where they were based and very prominent there. This was incorporated in 1972, the year after the foundation of the World Economic Forum. And on the bottom of the document, it has two companies that are relevant to the fraud. OYES Services Limited, which links to the international child trafficking via Max Clifford and Jeffrey Epstein. And at the bottom, is it the Solicitors Law Stationery Society Limited? Yeah, you can see that at the bottom. So that is linked to the fraud as well. Within the Diamond White Company, we have John Stewart. And you can see here they were appointed for just over a month in 2002, not long after the World Trade Center disaster. And they are connected to the Wellcome Trust companies, various ones actually, quite a few of them. And remember, we've already seen the Wellcome Trust on the research for the Diamond Light Source, so this makes sense. Now we're going to quickly look at the Wellcome Trust Finance PLC, and it links very quickly to the fraud and also Donald Trump, okay, and also links to the research surrounding Jimmy Savile, the Freemasons, and the royal family. CMS McCameron McKenna LLP. You'll see that on my other research. So this very quickly ties in. Now I've seen the Wellcome Trust. Here's another Wellcome Trust company linked to the same director, the actual Wellcome Trust Limited. And I've seen this. It has been shown in various aspects of the research surrounding the fraud, but I haven't really honed in and focused on it. But I'm going to now, because there's some very important evidence that's coming out thanks to somebody else that's also looking into it. So on one of the latter documents here of the incorporation document, page 10 of 35, you can see all of these other companies. This is on the Wellcome Trust company. Okay, so Arsenal Football Club. Remember, football clubs linked to this massively, all right? It's a huge part of this to launder money through. So that jumped out at me here. You can have a look at all the other companies there. And then also on the same document, you have these other companies. Notice, okay, now I haven't focused on it too much, but you've got the Peninsula and Oriental companies. P&O links to the World Trade Center disaster. Look at it, very important. The third one down, the De La Rue Company PLC. That is the currency producer for most of the world, I believe, okay? You've also got, look further down, Lloyd's Register of Shipping. Remember, that's very likely linked to Lloyd's Bank. Lloyds Bank is the documents that I acquired, forged Lloyds Bank documents from Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. Then further down, we can see petroleum companies, BP, loads of British petroleum companies. They are very big in the fraud. Most of the ones I've looked at are criminal organisations, fraudulently registered, okay? This allows them to exploit humanity through the cost of oil. Completely criminal, okay? Laundering money in relation to child trafficking, drug trafficking, all of the problems, and they don't want to resolve the problems, okay, because the more problems they create and portray those problems to the public or the masses, they can then request more money from you to say they need to deal with it. It's all deception and it's all pure evil, everybody. At the bottom, notice the connection to Iran, okay, ties in with the Iranian Green Movement that I'm talking about. Iranian Oil Services, Iranian Oil Participants Limited. We'll do a little bit more. Just look at the Wellcome Trust research on Wikipedia. The Wellcome Trust is a charitable foundation focused on health research based in London, United Kingdom. It was established in 1936. Okay, very old company, or fairly old company, going back that far. This is 4 years after that key Fleming company, CAPB Limited. Okay, 4 years later. In 1936, with legacies from the pharmaceutical magnate Henry Wellcome, founder of Burroughs Wellcome, one of the predecessors of GSK plc. That's GlaxoSmithKline plc. You'll find that that's featured throughout my research. It's very important. It ties in, I suspect, to the meeting that Dominic Cummings, or the trip he made, I suspect it was a meeting to Barnard Castle during lockdown, okay, to have an eye test. Now, GlaxoSmithKline is based in Barnard Castle. Further down, it said 2020 was making it the 4th wealthiest charitable foundation in the world. Okay, this is where we're talking about the Wellcome Trust here. In 2012, the Wellcome Trust was described by the Financial Times as the United Kingdom's largest provider of non-governmental funding for scientific research and one of the largest providers in the world. 2012, the same year as the God particle it's mentioning, okay? Now, charities are massive in this. Again, think inversions. And the Freemasons are massively implicated in this. They've enticed everybody in with these false charitable donation companies that are used as a fraudulent criminal front to launder money through them. It's clear. The evidence is there, everybody. Nothing I'm saying is without the evidence to support it all. Why do you think they haven't arrested me? Because they can't, because I haven't done anything wrong. Why do you think they haven't tried to prosecute me for slander or defamation? They can't, because it's all true, supported by the evidence. And I've had constant threats for the last 3 years of slander and defamation to scare me off. I've had veiled attempt threats on my life. Okay, you can see here, 2019, development increased within the company by 22% because they're linked to the pharmaceutical industry. Because when you go into GlaxoSmithKline, you will see that one of the directors is linked to AstraZeneca, and there's lots more as well when you look at GlaxoSmithKline. So the headquarters for the Wellcome Trust operations are run from 2 buildings, one on Euston Road in London. The Wellcome building, I know I've gone over half an hour, but I'm just going to carry on for a bit. The Wellcome building at 183 Euston Road was built in 1932, the same year as the foundation of this Fleming company that we're talking about, CAPB Limited. Now, it was the last name for it. And it was built in Portland stone. Okay, Portland stone. Just before we come to Portland stone, further down it says another building opened in 2004, 3 years after the World Trade Center disaster, as the administrative headquarters of the Wellcome Trust. In 2019, the Wellcome Trust also opened the office in Berlin. Now, Germany is very important in relation to all of this, okay? There's links through to Siemens and other organisations to the Nazi concentration camp, or the Nazi regime. I'm going to come to it again in relation to Operation Paperclip in a minute, how Germany ties in with that. So, Portland stone, when you click on it, Portland stone is a limestone geological formation, formally named the Portland Stone Formation, dating to the Tithonian age of the late Jurassic, that is quarried on the Isle of Portland in Dorset. Okay, you'll see on my recent research for, I think it was the helicopter crash in New York, it was in New York on the 10th of April this year. You'll see that it linked to a Weymouth company. Weymouth is literally right by Portland, okay? And of course, Dorset is where Deborah Fleming was the NHS chief executive in charge of a £700 million budget. Reading further down, you can see the quarries are cut in beds of white grey limestone separated from chert beds. It has been used extensively as a building stone throughout the British Isles, notably in major public buildings in London, such as St Paul's Cathedral, making the connection to the religious establishments, which there's already a massive link throughout all of the fraud, linking them with the child abuse and blood taken from children and crimes against humanity. And here we have that the stone was used at Buckingham Palace as well, and the United Nations that we've been looking at. Now, just quickly before we end this, I think we'll stop in a minute. Yeah, we'll just do the last couple of pages because I'm still completing the document. So, where are we? Lost the page now. It's going to load up. So, we mentioned it earlier on in the research regarding CERN, the Jewish Community Centre UK. It's where only one of the directors out of multiple directors has an address in Switzerland. It's very relevant. In Geneva, which is where CERN is based, okay, and the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum, etc. It also has ties to the on here to the Madeleine McCann case research, also the NHS. Also, that has the Charles Darwin Trust on it, okay, which would disprove all religions, the theory of evolution, okay, which I suspect is a complete and utter made-up part of all of this. I 100% believe in a creator, and I believe I'm being guided by them. And there's multiple other important links, including to royal family companies, all on the incorporation document for this company. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because there's also a Portland Trust company. Oh, go back into it. The Portland Trust linked to this director that's on the document. Just whilst we're on this page, also relevant is the Yoni Yezna Memorial Foundation, because Yoni Yezna was somebody that was fatally injured in a supposed bombing in, I think it was Tel Aviv. I haven't got it in front of me at the moment. Tel Aviv, linking to Palestinians, okay, and I suspect that was all staged to lead up to where we are now with the staged events of falsified biblical prophecies. So within the Wellcome Trust research, just a bit more here. In 1995, the trust divested itself of any interest in pharmaceuticals by selling all remaining stock to Glaxo plc. Now, 1995 is very important because that is when the Hakluyt Advisory Company was incorporated, and that company, as you've known from my previous research, is on the incorporation document for the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, which is an incredibly important company in all of this. And that links the royal family to the Russian government, to the Flemings, and the Flemings linked to Ukraine. And it's all linked into the international government fraud, the same weapons companies. And it proves without a shadow of a doubt from that research that we have a theatrical, lying, deceptive show being put on in relation to international conflicts. They're all collaboratively working together. And that company has since dissolved. Okay, I think it was August last year after I'd exposed it. Okay, the Hakluyt Advisory Company. See further down, again, it links back in GlaxoSmithKline plc. And oh yeah, a little bit more. So criticisms in relation to GlaxoSmithKline, in the Wellcome Trust. It has been reported that the Wellcome Trust has billions of investments in companies related to problems the philanthropy wants to solve. Remember, this is all a problem reaction solution that they've managed to utilize, okay, to get all of this money to go towards CERN, what appears to be their ultimate project, okay, complete evil, okay, to create deliberately, I suspect, a point of singularity or a black hole to end everything. And we're going to come to theories on why they do that later. But you can see here that they want to solve in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. The trust has investments in pharmaceutical companies involved in the development and delivery of treatments for COVID-19, which means it has the potential to gain financially where those treatments are monetized. Now, the evidence is absolutely overwhelming that the outbreak, shall we say, was completely staged as a false cover-up for, I believe, what we're talking about here with CERN, the radiation, and how that ties in with the cell towers. And CERN is immediately linked to the cell towers, and we're going to come to that later. So the Wellcome Trust are the projects that they've been involved in. I just found this very interesting. The Avon longitudinal study of parents and children, a cohort study of children born in England during 1991 and 1992. The key years that we've been talking about recently, okay? The Gulf War, the creation of the World Wide Web linking to CERN, leading to the electronic creation of the register for Companies House, the creation or release of the Terminator 2 movie Judgment Day, and 1992 leading into the electronic register, as we've mentioned. And you can see other projects that they were also involved in. Now, I suspect all, certainly the main illnesses that we're aware of, have been deliberately created and integrated and given a name as part of these crimes against humanity. I suspect we're meant to live a lot longer than we do. I mean, I've seen a recent video, and when you refer back to scripture, humans, according to that, were able to live for 900 years plus. Now, that would not surprise me if it is true. Okay, it really wouldn't, with all of this deception that's going on. And of course, they can manage population through incentivized choice, through truth, transparency and trust, and incentivized choice. Okay, but they've managed humanity through crime, through deception. This is a fact, everybody. Through suffering, through exploitation and victimization. Well, that's the complete opposite of moral conscience, isn't it? Moral conscience given to us by our Creator to protect us all. And I'm going to come to that a bit more later. Anyway, had an email here from somebody on the 30th of December 2024, a link. Some people are sending me some brilliant evidence, and thank you so much to everybody that's sending me stuff. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to integrate it into my evidence, but I'm trying to do that a bit more now. So that link to this, the Wellcome Trust, tying into MK Ultra from the 1990s, you can see here, okay, and it makes mention of a file linking into the Wellcome Trust. The file was created by Stephen Abrahams but was untitled. The title has been created by the cataloger, and it compromises a partial manuscript about MK Ultra, a draft letter to the CIA making a Freedom of Information Act request, and writings about Ronald Stark, the use of LSD in research and extrasensory perception, ESP research. Now, remember what we said about Julian Assange and that occult, okay, the doomsday cult? I'm almost certain that we've got a doomsday cult now in control of everything that may end everything if humanity doesn't unite over this, I believe. That's what all of the evidence now suggests. So it's so important that everyone gets behind me and gets behind this evidence as soon as possible. So we have this link again to LSD. Okay, it was mentioned before. I've heard people telling me about this. Linking in to MK Ultra and back to the Wellcome Trust, everybody, that we're talking about. Now, I'm going to I know we've gone well over half an hour, and I do apologise. Now, remember, I've researched MK Ultra, and it links back to my father's adoptive family. Okay? There's no coincidence in my positioning in all of this, everybody. There really isn't. I'm being guided. And it links to my previous school, okay, via the MK Ultra research. It links to Waterman's offshore companies, and researching into it, it then goes back in, links to Olympic Games companies, football companies. This is all shown on the rapid response evidence, okay, and it links to the rapid response teams who have been making threats to steal my home, threats to steal my van, and very clearly are working in collaboration with the Flemings and with my wife's family, okay, and Bannerman, okay, to try and, it appears, silence me from doing all of this, making all of these veiled threats. So let's look at MK Ultra. If you're not aware of it, it was a human experimentation program, I'm so sorry, designed and undertaken by the US Central Intelligence Agency. Now, I've researched the heads of the intelligence agencies. They're all involved in this, okay? This includes Chris Wray, the previous FBI head of the FBI, who they've now changed since I'm exposing all of this. The head of MI5, they're all linked into this. They're all working on this, everybody, against you. It links the CIA to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. The term MK Ultra is a CIA cryptonym. MK is an arbitrary prefix standing for the Office of Technical Services, and Ultra is an arbitrary word out of dictionary used to name this project. The program has been widely condemned as a violation of individual rights and an example of the CIA's abuse of power, with critics highlighting its disregard for consent and its corrosive impact on democratic principles. When you go into it a little bit more, like on other documents, you'll see that they carried out mass experimentation on the public, okay, non-consensual, including seeing if they could get individuals to carry out assassination attempts on others, and it will be used to get people to commit suicide and all sorts, and it's using pharmaceuticals, subliminal messages, radiation, and all other forms of mind control. A bit more research on it in 1953, which is when it supposedly stopped, okay? Started 1953. 1973 was when they supposedly stopped it. I suspect it all continued and went underground. In 1953, a few days before his death, Frank Olson quit his position as acting chief of the Special Operations Division at Detrick, Maryland, later Fort Detrick, because of a severe moral crisis concerning the nature of his biological weapons research. Among Olson's concerns were the development of assassination materials used by the CIA, the CIA's use of biological warfare materials in covert operations, experimentation with biological weapons in populated areas, and here the collaboration with former Nazi scientists under Operation Paperclip. Remember, we're going to talk about, we mentioned that earlier. Underneath it, LSD mind control research. Now, why would they do this on the public? Why would they be so evil? Well, it enables them to exploit, victimize, and ultimately, if they're linked to what wants to have a belief, shall we say, against our true creator and wanting to do the opposite, then enable them to reach this ultimate goal in relation to CERN, to invert everything, creation itself. And also underneath, the use of psychiatric drugs during terminal interrogation under program codenamed Project Artichoke. Now, I suspect Michael Todd, was murdered. He was the Chief Constable of Manchester Police. He was working with the CIA, and he's linked to the fraud, but he was also looking at extraordinary rendition that links into techniques on interrogation, linking into the FBI, etc. I suspect also that Neil Monroe from Dorset Police was murdered in relation to this, because that links to the case of Michael Todd, where he had a conversation with a neighbour the night before his supposed death, where he supposedly fell or jumped from a ferry in Poole Harbour and was found washed up at Sandbanks in Dorset. Okay, and he had this discussion about Michael Todd, and there's other information in relation to that. Michael Todd was supposedly found dead alone on the side of Mount Snowdon in Wales. So Operation Paperclip here is was a secret United States intelligence program in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers and technicians were taken from former Nazi Germany to the US for government employment after the end of World War II in Europe. Between 1945 and 1959, several were confirmed to be former members of the Nazi Party, including the SS and SA. Well, 1959 is the year after Charles was initiated to become the Prince of Wales in 1969, which is all linked into this, everybody. It all ties in. 1958 is also, as I've mentioned several times, when NASA was founded, one letter short of Satan. So I suspect everything we're told about space is a lie deliberately to allow them to potentially carry out their ultimate plan in relation to CERN, to make us believe that the universe is bigger than it is and that we're not as important as we are. So therefore, what would be the benefit of creating a black hole on Earth? Well, if we are the centre, or let's say we're much more important than what we're being led to believe through these lies, then of course it would make sense that they create the point of singularity or black hole on Earth to invert the whole known universe or galaxy, okay? And there's a lot more to that, but everything all points to CERN, to be honest with you. And I've looked at this for 3 years, and it ties in with the cell towers. So some more information from what somebody else has sent me. Thank you very much for your information. Brilliant information coming in. Looking at Fleming and tying in with the project paperclip. I wasn't aware of this, so thank you very much for this person who sent me a link. And here it is. And we're talking about NASA, okay? Look how this all ties in. The father of NASA boffin behind moon landing plan hailed from co-antrim, Jack Fleming. This article was from July 2019, the year of the outbreak. Remember, the outbreak was in December 2019. And I haven't highlighted this, but we'll mention it anyway. In 1961, an American visitor to a family gathering in the co-antrim countryside declared to his mutual cousins they were going to the moon. Shortly afterwards, one local newspaper declared emigrant's son has become Moon Man. Even more bizarre than the headline was the fact that Bill Fleming, remember, the Fleming family initiated my removal from Exbourne Manor for refusing to file forged bank documents, linking in through into everything we've ever been led to believe, all being a deception, linking into the blood taken from children, tying in to a very sinister, what appears to be doomsday cult, willing or planning, it seems, bringing an end to everything that we've ever known. So even more bizarre than the headline was the fact that Bill Fleming, whose father William left Randallstown for Michigan in 1911, was telling the truth. What may have seemed like a tall tale to his Northern Irish cousins, in fact, came shortly after NASA and had given him just 4 weeks to deliver the plan to put a man on the moon. This year, US President John F. Kennedy made his famous speech to Congress promising to achieve the impossible by the end of the decade. And he was the one that initiated NASA, one letter short of Satan. Now, everything around the death of JFK will be because of this, and we will have been deceived massively. Further down, it says the space race had become a national obsession after the Soviet Union's Yuri Gagarin became the first man to travel into space. NASA still had no plan or certainty that a mission to the moon was even physically possible. And Mr. Fleming, then a young aeronautical engineer, was picked to head the task force. Speaking ahead of the 50th anniversary of the lunar landings, Mr. Fleming's son, Jack, 69, told the Belfast Telegraph the incredible story of how the Fleming report became NASA's blueprint for the most daring scientific project ever. Believe it or not, it was only after he passed away in 1999, year of the foundation of the new Church of Satan, After the death of Princess Diana in 1997 and the death of the founder of the original foundation of the Church of Satan, when I first understood the significance, he said from his home in California, "You have to understand, my dad was an incredibly humble and modest man and never bragged or boasted about anything that happened to him at work. This involved working directly with the German rocket scientist Werner von Braun." Okay, now think of Elon Musk. He's the rocket man, isn't he, with all of this? And I've heard connections linking in to this, linking into Musk. I haven't got that evidence here, but it wouldn't surprise me. Notice how Elon Musk did the Nazi salute, didn't he, on one of his, what it appeared to be a Nazi salute. Noticed during one of his speeches, notice how he wore the Baphomet in a Halloween party in 2022, the same year I'm exposing all of this, everybody. Well, we're at 55 minutes, we need to end this. So this involved working directly with a German rocket scientist who was secretly transported to the US after the war to conduct research as part of Operation Paperclip. Thanks very much for watching. We're going to end it here. Come back for the next part, please.